WCW 2000 is like a train wreck you just can't look away. I'm John Ritlin with a retro review of WCW Nitro from May 1st, 2000, and yep, we're about a month into the New Blood Millionaires Club storyline. This is the go-home Nitro for Slamboree, and yep, at this point, you know what? I'm just going to torture myself and watch all the Nitro, all the Thunder, and all the pay-per-views from 2000. Why not? Why the fuck not? I mean, really, what else do I have to do? Because we're all kind of locked into this whole thing until, you know, it passes, and you guys want content, and you enjoy me ranting about shit. So, we start off with David Arquette and Courtney Cox Arquette. This was right around time Scream 3 had been out in theaters for a little bit, I believe. I'm also going to be reviewing all 4 of the Scream movies at some point, much like I did Final Destination and I Know What You Did last summer. They did 3 of those. I still don't believe it. But they're talking, and David Arquette is the world champion. If you want to know what I have to say about David Arquette being a world champion, check out in the old school wrestling reviews playlist and documentary reviews playlist. Check out the Thunder review that I did where I praised Arquette for his willingness to do this and what he did with his money, and I slammed the decision to give him the world title. And even he knew it was a bad idea, so I did not knock Arquette, just to tell you guys right away. But please check that out if you want to hear me rant for about 30 goddamn minutes. It was a horrible episode also. So, we get 2 limos facing off, a black limo and a white limo. And then, shockingly, not so shockingly rather, we get Hogan's Charger showing up and barely hitting the limo. And then he attacks Mike Awesome while DDP's group and Jeff Jarrett, Vince Russo's group, brawl a bit and everything. And that's the first brawl. This is Shenanigans, the episode. Vince Russo was an idiot that couldn't book wrestling to save his goddamn life. And so that right there is a brawl with shenanigans and all this stuff. And then we have Crowbar versus Norman Smiley with a mascot guy. And I don't remember who the mascot guy was supposed to be at Slamboree, but I think this is when Ralphus came in. Or maybe I'm just confusing it. Maybe the timeline's like all like, you know, jumbled in my head. So, boy, Norman Smiley, pretty damn good, and Crowbar, pretty damn good. Boy, they poorly utilize so many talents. And just at this point, WCW just was about to fold because the company was dead. It was a car crash. It was a train wreck, and not even a good kind of train wreck. But still, you couldn't look away. So, hardcore bullshit, because Mascot had a big head, he got stuck in the ropes, and then, Sunset Flip. After all that shit, a Sunset Flip gets the victory. Norman Smiley wins there. That's what caused it. We then have David Arquette and Courtney Cox Arquette and Kurt Russell outside the set of 3,000 Miles to Graceland. If you have not seen that movie, it is shit. And Courtney says to, you know, Kurt, well, hey, he's the WCW champion. Yeah, right. Kurt laughs and then walks off, and then David gets a chair and goes to chase after him. She's like, you're not a wrestler. Credit to Arquette for making the most out of this. We then get multiple vignettes of Stasiak, or clips from vignettes of Stasiak shooting free throws to show why he's the perfect one. Absolutely is what he said at one point, because he had abs. He was actually in really good shape. And then after this was made into Planet Stasiak in WWE. Good job. I think Vince was pissed because he didn't like the meat gimmick. They called him meat. He was treated like a piece of meat by 2 women. No, really. So, Arquette, DDP, and Canyon are in the ring. DDP is trying not to laugh. Arquette's doing his best here. And he says he's going to relinquish the title. Bischoff's group and everybody, you know, Russo, Jarrett, they all come out and they say, and Kimberly for what she's worth, which wasn't much of anything at that point. They say, no, you're not gonna. We're gonna put you in the Slamboree 3-tiered cage match. And then Luger chases after Russo and Liz because, if you recall, recently Russo said that Liz was his property. The only way that Vince Russo could get a woman near him was to get one stupid enough to marry him or to kidnap them. And Russo being abusive towards Liz. Gee, I wonder what Lex uses inspiration in 2003. So, Bischoff then, you know, says to Hugh Morris backstage, 1, your tie-dye shirt is loud. Actually, he didn't say that. But he said, you're going to face off against Steiner and Jarrett in 3-way dance. And if any of your misfits in action interfere, that's it. You guys are all fired. We then get the Wall versus Horace Hogan in a tables match. Miss Hancock comes down. Then Kidman runs in. Then a chokeslam through the table. From the Wall. Not from Miss Hancock doing a chokeslam would have actually been pretty interesting. If I'm rushing through some of this stuff, it's because all these matches were like 2 to 3 minutes, with the exception of the main event. The main event was like 7, 8. It was a Hogan match, so of course it was given the most time. We then get Hogan in, and despite him fighting through, you know, trying to fight everybody off, he gets powerbombed through the table. Awesome nearly botching that because Hogan wasn't ready, so I'm going to actually blame Hogan for this, because Mike Awesome was like, oh, I'll do this, wait, I got to be safe, because Hogan has beat his body up and his back is pretty much in tatters, and this was in 2000. This wouldn't be the last time we'd see them. We get Vampiro in black and white. It was almost filmed like a snuff film with weird old, weird effects and all this stuff. It was, first person snuff film shit, where he was in a graveyard and asked Sting to come see him in the graveyard. This was stuff that was actually put on TV. And I like Vampiro, and I like Sting. This is stuff that was actually put on TV. I don't know why. And then Russo and Liz in security, and Russo challenges Lex to a match, says, I will rack you, but if you can beat me, you get Liz back. We then get Steiner, Jarrett, and Morris. It was a three-way dance. 4 minutes, maybe. Jarrett hit Steiner with a guitar, and Morris got the victory. And then Bischoff fires Misfits in action anyway. Cool. We then get Liz calling Russo disgusting, or that you disgust me, which, to be fair, he's a, stupid buggy-whipped, moron that does not deserve, never deserved, to be in wrestling. He was a goddamn piece of shit, a ballless son of a bitch that would have never known what to do in a goddamn fight if the other person was dead. The dead person would have still been able to whip his ass because that's how much of a weak coward he was. So we get Vampiro and Sting in a graveyard, and we get a tombstone powderized over Sting's head. And then Sting gets put in an open grave. This is not the last time we would see this stuff. This show made no sense. Tank Abbott versus DDP. They came up with this whole thing where if DDP lost, then Tank Abbott would get a match with David Arquette later. Well, there were Goldberg chants because they wanted to see Goldberg come back and beat Tank Abbott. They wanted to see anybody come back and beat Tank Abbott. And I got nothing against Tank Abbott. I mean, hell, he beat the hell out of Mark Madden at one point, which was good. I mean, he did in a worked way, because if he had done it to any of the announcers, he would have killed him with how hard he would hit. And also, I want to say really quickly about the commentary. Three-person commentary teams have never been my cup of tea, not even during the prime Nitro days. Good commentary helps any segment, any match. Bad commentary takes away. Horrible commentary makes a show excruciating. And when it seems like commentary, even if they're trying, at least 2/3 of them are trying, it doesn't help. It doesn't help when the segments are excruciating, and it just doesn't help when the product's bad. So if the commentary doesn't care, and the wrestlers don't seem to care, why should the fans care? No wonder the ratings were in the goddamn toilet at this point. And the New Blood Millionaires Club storyline was shit. So we get DDP being hit with a bottle, he gets knocked out, and then stretchered out, taken to the hospital. So Tank Abbott gets to face David Arquette later. And then Hulk and Awesome are brawling backstage in the locker room. We then get, Billy Kidman saying, thanks, Billy. Oh, Billy, the cable guy thing. And he was hyping up to face Hogan at Slamboree. Challenges anybody in the back, any of the old guys. Here comes Nash. He attacks Kidman, even throws him, like at one point. Here comes Conan. And Ray is a bleach blonde. Why Ray thought bleaching his hair blonde was a good idea, I'll never know. I bleached my hair. It looked terrible. Ray should not bleach his hair. He looked more like Ernest Miller, and you never want to look like Ernest Miller. You never even want to be associated with a piece of shit like Ernest Miller. Ernest Miller wasn't even on this show, and I felt the need to say that because I hated that goddamn character. The person, have no idea about the person, but I hate the goddamn character. And then he chases him to the back. We then get Russo saying he will give Liz to Luger if he wins. Okay, we get Bagwell and Douglas jumping Flair while Luger's trying to make his way to the ring. A bunch of security guys beat up Luger. And then Luger gets handcuffed, hogtied, and beat up. And then Liz hits Russo with a bat. Could have hit him in the head and it wouldn't have affected anything because he hasn't had a working brain since birth. I mean, the fact that Russo was ever born was actually shameful. I think his mother should have been ashamed that she gave birth to him. But I digress on that. So, Chronic then comes out, beats up security. Cops get there and mace everybody. This was car crash bullshit at its worst. And then Lex and Chronic get hauled away. And also, before that, Nash, attacked Conan and Ray in a lowrider truck. Which they could have gotten away with it, and they didn't want to get... They could have gotten away easily, even though there was a bit of a crowd. They could have gotten away, and Conan apparently just forgot how to drive. Or they told Conan to forget how to drive. Or maybe Ray needed to be in a car seat in the back of the truck. I don't know. The blonde hair. Why the blonde hair? Vampiro then says that he is the anti-hero and this kind of stuff. There's a crow or a raven. Or, there's not the wrestler Raven, but there's a crow on the low metal piece below the Titantron, and then Sting shows up and beats the shit out of Vampiro and then leaves. So I guess we're getting a match at Slamboree. I don't recall the Slamboree card right off the bat, but I will be watching it at some point because, yeah, I'm going to torture myself with this. Because maybe if I torture myself with this wrestling that I watched when, you know, I was just a teenager, or I was 19 at the time, or I was just 20 when WCW folded, maybe I won't knock the modern product so much. Because, sweet Christ, they didn't even focus on any wrestling here. It was 85% talking shit or brawls. And it wasn't any good. It was worse than ECW. Because at least in ECW, you would get the occasional good match, good to great match on TV or pay-per-view. Even if the show with Buck Wild was absolutely insane, you could at least get a little cohesion and you could trust guys like Jerry Lynn, RVD, Lance Storm, Just Incredible, you know, at that time for Just Incredible. Or their tag team division, even when their roster was depleted. You could count on WCW, or on ECW rather, delivering at least 1 to 2 good to great matches on their pay-per-views. Even on their worst ones. And WCW, by this point, they just didn't care. They just didn't care. Even if the wrestlers did, nobody in charge cared. And it showed. So, Liz slaps Russo. Should have slapped him harder. Tank Abbott versus David Arquette. Tank throws him around. Arquette tries to tackle him at one point. That doesn't work. DDP gets back from the ambulance. And then his music plays. Tank Abbott's distracted and just staring at the Titantron for like ages. And then we cut to the back where Bischoff says, wait a second, shit, the music's been playing for a minute. Jeff, go out there, you know, Jarrett, go out there and attack and make sure that DDP doesn't get there. DDP then is diamond cutting Abbott in the ring, throws the ref in, puts Arquette on Tank Abbott. David Arquette got a pinfall victory over Tank Abbott. And then Jeff Jarrett couldn't get back there because he was attacked by Scott Steiner because of the earlier guitar shot. I'm pretty certain that the wrestlers were the ones that probably booked this stuff because I can't imagine that anybody would want to admit that they actually wrote this stuff. And I can't imagine this stuff was actually written at all. So then we get Hennig beating up Stasiak on the basketball court. Okay, cool, whatever. We get Hulk Hogan versus Mike Awesome. It was a brawl. The weight belt was thrown in. Chairs were thrown in. Kidman and Bischoff were in. Multiple bad chair shots. And then a chair shot from Kidman to Hulk outside. And, you know, Hogan was bleeding, but he got thrown in. And then Awesome pinned him 1, 2, 3. But then Hogan's outside, gets back in with a chair. Hit weak-ass chair shots. Now, look, I'm glad that chair shots to the head don't exist anymore, but weak-ass chair shots. I mean, maybe if they were black people, Hogan would have hit him a lot harder because he hates the brothers, brother. But then he's bleeding from the head. But then the red liquid, that's what they call it, that red liquid. It's blood. It's fake blood, but it's blood. It's a bunch of blood that hits the goddamn ring. It's the new blood, and then the new blood attacks Hogan, and that's what goes off there. And Bischoff does something like this, or does, I don't know, he doesn't do the white power symbol, thankfully, but because that would have been Hogan. But this was absolutely atrocious. These reviews are going to get shorter and shorter because there isn't anything really to talk about unless it's fucking bullshit. And this is the go-home show for Slamboree. Fuck. I still got to watch Thunder. God damn it, which may already be up by the time you see this. So I'm going to do my best to watch this stuff unbiased, except I can't because WCW 2000 is shit. And even any of the good stuff that they tried just got buried in a sea of bullshit. So anyway, agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.